They used to say she was as poor as a church rat, barefoot, hungry, forgotten by God. But today her name enters rooms before her feet do. She sprays money like perfume, dresses like royalty, and speaks in whispers that make grown men sweat. How did she get there? Let's start from the beginning. She was born in Kogi State on a Friday afternoon, under a sun so hot it melted zinc rooftops and roasted yam without fire. As the midwife caught her, a strange silence settled over the compound. The baby, perfect, wide-eyed and breathtaking, cried once, then stared, but no one clapped. No one danced, no women ululated. There was no naming ceremony, only whispers. They said she was beautiful, yes, too beautiful, some claimed, but also cursed, unlucky, unwanted. Her mother, Adaronke Alakija, was nowhere to be found by sunset. Some said she died from painful labor, her body too fragile to survive the storm of childbirth. Others, more bitter, more bold, swore that Olamide, her husband, had beaten her to death, furious that she had birthed a daughter instead of a son. One neighbor claimed she saw blood on his hands that day, but no one reported it. In that village, a man's house was his kingdom, and kings answered to no one. So the baby, Omotola, grew under the watch of a father whose love was measured in beatings and silence. He remarried quickly, to Boluatif, a woman with tired eyes and a soft heart half buried under fear. Bolu was not wicked. She fed Omotola. She cleaned her wounds. She stood between her and the belt when she could. But she knew limits. She could only love the girl just enough not to get herself beaten too. By age 5, Omotola started school, and by 4 p.m., every day, she was on the roadside selling groundnuts with a tray balanced on her head and dust in her throat. She had no toys, no time, and no peace. If she returned with less than expected, her father would beat her until her cries became normal background music in the compound. But Omotola was no ordinary child. She didn't just survive. She learned. She mastered faces. She made friends with the Agberos at the motor park. She smiled at policemen and shared her peanuts just so they'd ignore her when others were arrested. People called her streetwise. Others called her dangerous. At home, her brilliance was ignored. But in school, before she was forced to drop out, she could read, calculate, and sell all in one breath. Bolu used to whisper, "This one will make it. Just give her market and watch." But her father didn't care. By JSS 2, he refused to pay her fees. "Girls don't need school," he said. "Shebi, she can sell groundnut." And so she did. She sold fish, then rice, then pepper, then secondhand slippers, anything that moved. By 13, Omotola was fully baptized into hustle. That's when she met Deji, older, dark-skinned, sharp-mouthed, and never without a plan. He wasn't rich, but he moved like someone who would be. He had the kind of confidence that could convince a goat to wear lipstick. Omotola was drawn to him, not for love, not at first, but because he understood. He was like her, broken, brilliant, and burning for more. They became partners in survival. They sold fake perfumes, dodged touts, and sometimes, yes, they stole. Not out of greed, out of hunger, out of desperation. She'd flash that innocent smile, pretend to be lost, and walk away with someone's phone. Or money, or bag. They never got caught. At 18, she and Deji were an unbreakable team. By day, they sold goods in the sun. By night, they schemed. She knew how to read people now, their weaknesses, their greed, their fears. And she used it. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was winning. Just enough to keep herself from starving and her father from killing her. But home was still a war zone. One night, after a brutal day in the market, Omotola returned with a swollen ankle and just enough money for Gary. Olamide was already home, drunk, loud, and surrounded by two women who looked barely older than his daughter. He asked for the day's sales. She gave it to him. He counted it, grunted, and slapped her so hard her ear rang. "You think I'm feeding you for charity?" he shouted. "Stupid girl, you can't even sell like your mates." Bolu tried to step in. He slapped her too. That was the moment everything changed. Omotola stood up slowly, breathing hard. Her face was bruised, but her eyes were calm, like boiling water before it spills. And then, for the first time in her life, she slapped her father back. The whole compound froze. Olamide staggered, confused, humiliated. She didn't stop. She beat him back, fist for fist, blow for blow. The two girls he brought home fled barefoot into the night. Bolu screamed, but Omotola was done being silent. She fought like someone who had waited her whole life to scream without sound. When it was over, she didn't wait for permission. She packed a nylon bag, tied her scarf tight, and walked out the door. No looking back, no goodbye. She never returned. That night, while the moon watched silently and the harmattan wind scraped the ground like dry bones, Omotola and Deji ran. Not like lovers, but like fugitives escaping fate. Their bodies were tired, but their minds were clear. They had been planning this for months, saving coin by coin, stealing only when necessary, and dreaming big behind closed eyes. They didn't carry much, just a nylon bag, one blanket, 8,400 naira, and a kind of confidence only the poor understand, the kind that comes from knowing that rock bottom can break, but it can also bounce you high. They arrived in Lagos with nothing but hope and grit. Deji, who was known as Ola on the streets, introduced Omotola to his boys, sharp-tongued area boys with loud laughter and blood in their knuckles, hustlers, survivors, thugs with soft hearts. They laughed when they saw her, saying, "Nawa oh, you bring woman come hustle?" But Ola just smiled. This one is not just woman. This one is Storm. Omotola changed her name to Ife, love, but not the soft kind, the kind that bites, the kind that survives. They called Deji Adeola, the crown of wealth, and together they hustled like their lives depended on it, because it did. They sold cigarettes under bridges, near brothels, inside nightclubs, even at police stations. Ife would walk into Agbero dens with her slippers making loud pa-pa sounds, shout "Siga, Siga," and leave with empty trays and full pockets. She moved like someone who had nothing to lose and everything to prove. The boys who doubted her now called her Aya Sase, the Iron Woman. After months of sleeping on benches and bathing behind kiosks, they saved enough to rent a tiny room in a public compound where toilets were shared and secrets were louder than generators. Their hard work paid off. Their cigarette distributor, a dangerous man named Asipa, noticed their consistency and cleverness. He promoted them into regional distributors and started giving them better cuts. Their success grew. They moved into a 2-bedroom flat. They started traveling from city to city, smuggling goods, selling lies, and whispering their names like a brand. People respected them. People feared them. By the time Ife turned 25, she was already a queen in the making. Then came the real test. One afternoon, Asipa introduced her to a man known only as Baba Elewan, an elderly Yoruba man whose voice was soft, but whose eyes held secrets. He said, "You're sharp. I like that. But you dey play small business. Let me show you the road to big money, special medicine, foreign." She knew what he meant. Heroin. She told Ola that night. His face changed. "Ife, this is not biscuit way you dey sell. This is drugs, hard drugs. If we enter, there's no comin' back." She looked him dead in the eye and said, "I love you, Ola. But I love wealth too. I will not raise my children on soaked Gary. If you love me, walk with me. If you're afraid, move aside." That night, Ola sat alone in the dark, but he stayed. Together they entered the real game. They moved heroin in ceramic bowls, in boxes of yam flour, inside prosthetic limbs. Ife was bold. She was precise. She was a natural. Within months, she was known across Lagos, Benin, Cotonou, even as far as Zurich. They called her Aye Hibere, the beginning of the world. But when power grows, something else must break. It started with a mistake. A small one, maybe. But in Ife's world, small mistakes carried big funerals. Ola, the one who had once held her when she cried, the one who'd slept on cold concrete beside her, the only man who knew her before the diamonds, messed up. He lost a shipment. Heroin. The kind of loss that echoed through the underworld like thunder. He came to her, knees weak, heart racing. "Please, Ife, I go fix Am. I swear on my mother's name." She looked at him long and slow. Something passed between them. Not anger, not pity. Something colder. "Okay," she said softly. "I forgive you." That night, she made egusi soup. Thick, spicy, just how he liked it. She served him like old times, wiped his mouth when he laughed, even laid next to him like the nights before wealth hardened her. And in the morning, she made one phone call. They found Ola at a buka near Idumota, shirt torn, slippers missing, eyes swollen from crying. "Ife! Ife! Why?" She didn't answer. She didn't flinch. She didn't care. That same month, her wedding bells rang louder than funeral gongs. Mr. Kola, a man no one truly knew, became her husband. They said he was a billionaire with oil money in one hand and blood money in the other. His agbada smelled of dry-cleaned power. People whispered he owned ships. Others swore he owned courtrooms. The wedding? A festival. Helicopters circled the skies. Fuji stars praised her in lyrics. Actresses with bleached skin and swollen hips danced like the spirits had mounted them. Money fell like rain. Rice flew like snow. And Ife? She glowed like a god had kissed her cheek. From that day on, she was no longer a woman. She was a mystery. No one could trace her true story. No one dared ask about her past. Even her children, 2 boys and a girl, never called her mummy. She told them, "Call me madam. Let the world know your mother is not their mate." She lived like she had 7 lives. She once built a gold-plated vault just to store wigs and lace, sponsored a movie that never made cinema, built houses in 3 cities and never slept in any, held meetings in cars she never drove. Once, someone asked if she felt shame. After all the arrests, the scandal, the whispers, she laughed. "Shame no day for woman weighed on hawkfish under sun." And truly, shame feared her. She was arrested again and again. The first time, she was thrown into Kirikiri maximum prison. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She wore prison-like fashion, head high, wrapper tight, eyes sharp. She stayed 20 months, then came out glowing. The judge himself, Justice Ajani, escorted her out. Not a guard, not a clerk, the judge, because even power bows to fear. Later, she was caught again, this time at the airport with 72 wraps hidden inside baby powder tins. But instead of vanishing in shame, she disappeared from the news and reappeared at a film premiere. Red carpet, diamond necklace, fierce smile, untouchable. And when Sigun, one of her boys, lost a package, She didn't scream, she didn't curse, she didn't blink. She picked up her phone and said only 3 words. Collect him. 2 days later, Segun's body floated near the lagoon, bloated, silent, nameless. Ife never mentioned him again, because in her world, mercy is weakness, and weakness is death. By her late 20s, Ife was no longer just a woman, she was a system. Her name didn't just ring bells, it rang alarms. It slipped through police radios, it echoed in the corridors of power. It made mothers pull their sons off the street and whisper, "Don't cross her." She had turned Lagos into her chessboard, turned West Africa into her back garden, and turned fear into currency. Journalists who tried to write about her vanished. Politicians who dared question her quietly reassigned. Even officers of the law lowered their heads when she passed. Then, one day, the country decided to fight back. They gave it a name, Operation Clean Web. But the real ones knew it was Operation Catchy Fee. And even that title made agents shiver, but Ife wasn't running. She was watching, and she was ready. She'd been dodging their grip for years. They'd surround one safe house, she'd vanish from another. They'd tail a shipment, she'd reroute it mid-air. They were chasing shadow while the shadow ran the city. Once, they tracked her consignment to same border, ready, armed, waiting. But before they could strike, Ife made one call, just one. A senator picked up. By the time the agents arrived, the checkpoint had been shut down for repairs. No questions, no arrests, just a black SUV gliding past like royalty. That was her power. They even said she once used NDLEA officers to collect debts for her. A loyal courier misfired, lost her money. Instead of slapping him, she simply reported him. Business, not emotion. They picked him up the next morning. The poor man sold 3 cars, a Lexus, a Suzuki, and a battered Quest bus, just to pay her back and keep his freedom. But the government had had enough. So one dusty December evening they came for her. No knock, no papers, just boots, bullets, and bitterness. They stormed one of her safe houses in Lekki. Inside a box labeled baby diapers, they found 72 wraps of heroin. She smiled. When they took her to Kirikiri Maximum Prison, she didn't cry. She adjusted her wrapper, waved to the press, and said, "Ayin no get problem. Na my boys go bail me out. You people aren't the problem. My boys will handle this." And they did. Inside Kirikiri, she walked like the warden. The female guards greeted her like church aunties. She transferred money to their families, ordered shawarma for them during night shifts. Her cell had better curtains than some Lagos apartments. She made prison look like a 5-star retreat. When her case finally reached court, tension hung in the air like smoke. The prosecutor fumbled. One of the witnesses lost his voice mid-sentence. Nobody dared make eye contact. Then came the part people still whisper about today. The judge, Justice Ajani, didn't just grant her bail. He stood up from the bench, walked down with her, and personally escorted her out of the courtroom. Why? Because NDLEA agents were waiting outside to pounce. But not that day. That day, power wore heels and walked free. And did she calm down? She doubled down. She moved weight across Lagos, Cotonou, Abidjan, Zurich, Chicago. She turned airports into playgrounds and customs officers into errand boys. She sent shipments like wedding invitations. And the whole world danced to her rhythm. By then, her husband, Mr. Kola, had vanished. Some said he relocated, others said he never existed, just a name on papers to mask the real boss. No one really knew, and nobody dared to find out. Her children were growing, 2 boys, 1 girl, sharp, educated, hidden. She flew them out to school abroad, told them never to call her mummy in public. "Call me madam," she'd say. "Respect lasts longer than love." She was more than a mother, more than a boss. She was legend, flesh and fire. And behind her smile? 100 secrets, 1,000 sins, and one unshakable truth. Ife was untouchable. For years, Ife lived like a goddess, untouched, unseen in her true form, moving through cities like smoke. Her face sparkled under lights, her voice shook men into silence, and her name ruled continents without needing a crown. But power makes even mortals forget that they are flesh, and flesh always remembers. At 45, the same body that carried secrets and diamonds through borders began to crumble. A pain, small at first, like a whisper in her belly, grew into something darker. Ovarian cancer, the doctors said, shaking their heads like they were speaking to a ghost. For the first time in decades, Ife disappeared. No parties, no headlines, no late-night meetings. Her mansions went quiet, her phones stopped ringing, her mirrors stopped lying. She sat in silk bedsheets, crying into pillows stitched with her initials, asking herself, "Is this how it ends?" She couldn't tell anyone. Weakness was death, and she knew the world she built. It had no pity for queens who bled. She had money, power, houses, and gold, but no one to sit beside her bed. Her children had gone off to university abroad, smart, sharp, but distant, trained never to show emotion, trained by her. She walked through her own mansion wearing only a wrapper, no makeup, no guards. Sometimes she whipped herself in secret, not out of religion, but regret, crying as she whispered names of people she had buried in silence, and in her darkest hour she remembered Ola, Deji, the boy who once shared Gary with her in a one-room apartment, the man who once held her through rain and riot, the only one who gave her love before power made her heart stone. She beat herself harder that night. "I destroyed him," she said to the walls. "I killed a good man." So she made a call, then another, then another. Finally, someone found him. Ola was alive, 50 years old, married, running a small motor parts shop in a quiet corner of town. He had a little pot belly, a beautiful son, and peace she could smell from the moment she stepped out of her car. It was a cold morning when she visited. She wore a wrapper and a simple head tee, but her jewelry still sparkled like old memories. Her skin was pale. Her face, once feared, looked like it had forgotten how to be proud. Ola looked up. Their eyes met, and in that instant, 20 years of pain cracked the air. She dropped to her knees in front of his store, on the dusty cement. "Please, Deji, forgive me," she wept. "I ruined everything. I ruined you." Customers stared. Passers-by froze. Even the wind held its breath. But Ola didn't speak. He walked into the shop, shut the door, and wept like a child. She came again, and again, for 7 days straight. She stood in the sun, rain and shame, waiting. Then on the 7th day he walked up to her, his face calm, his voice low. He said, "Omotola alakija, I forgave you long ago. You must now forgive yourself." That was the day Ife finally broke. She entered her car that evening in silence. She didn't wear jewelry again after that. And not long after, her body gave out. All the drugs, surgeries, and specialists couldn't keep death from taking what power had loaned her. When she died, the whole country shook. Newspapers screamed her name. TV stations showed old clips. The powerful wept quietly. The poor filled the gates. Government officials, lawyers, police, pastors, musicians, former rivals. They all came to her burial, not for respect but for confirmation, to see for themselves if the legend was truly gone. And there she was, Omotola Alakija, a girl born under a cursed sun, a queen who built empires out of pain, a woman who had it all, and lost it piece by piece. Some said she was a business tycoon, some called her a witch with lace, others said she was just a girl who loved money more than mercy. But the griots, the old women who sit under mango trees and whisper stories to little girls, they call her the one who remembered too late. And in folk tales, that's a fate worse than death.